Good morning. Happy Friday. I believe last class we got as far as question 4 on the study guide for cell biology and macromolecules. So let's find those. I'll go over those. And again, I'm reviewing, so it's not just about did you turn in your worksheet. You're turning in the worksheet for credit that you did it. Not you should have right answers on it because we are going over the answers. So as I go over the answers, I will have a little more commentary on each question. And then I'm going to go through and show you some other things that you need to be looking at as far as studying for your test next week. Okay, let me. All right, so again, have that worksheet handy. I'm going to go through all of that with you. I'm going to share. First, let me see who's absent. Give it another minute. Um, so I can do attendance. All right. As far as what you need to upload, you do not need to upload the ecology diagram. You just need to upload the ecosystem page, which we already did on Wednesday. And we had started cell biology and macromolecules, and we got as far as question number 4. Okay. And again, these are study guides, so not only should you just go through and do the answers, but you also, these are for you to study to prepare for next week's test. Again, the milestone is worth 20% of your grade, so please do study. Please do study. Give it one more minute. See if we can't get 2 other people logged in. All right. While we're waiting for them, let me go out here for a minute. Again, I remind you that the end of every module is something called the review page. So you want to make sure that you go through, not so much that one, and do the review page. Like what we're doing now is, oh gosh, trying to open these so I don't have to download them. Yay. Sometimes it doesn't open, it makes me download it. All right, so go through, make sure that you're looking at all the vocabulary. Like what we're doing now has a lot of vocabulary on it. So we're talking about macromolecules in cells. So come back and look at this, the function of all of the macromolecules. What do they do? So that's what this worksheet was about. Let's see, close. I want to close without going back. All right, next one. You want to look at the review page for cell transport, and that's also on the worksheet that we're doing now. So if you open that, this one is important because the worksheet that we're doing today really wants you to know the function of all of the cell parts. So if you have, we've done this one, You need to find it. If you haven't done it, you should do it because you need to know what their function is. You need to have an idea of a picture of the cell and what all of those parts look like. You need to know the difference between a prokaryote and a eukaryote one. And what goes in the middle is that they all have this the genetic material. They just don't have membrane bound organelle, nucleic acid. Like the DNA is all over the place. It's not in a nucleus, whereas eukaryotes have a membrane bound nucleus. Both plants and animals basically have the same list of organelles, all these things here. The difference is that plants have large central vacuoles, they have chloroplasts, they have cell walls. So the things at the end of this list are what plants have. Animal cells have centrioles, but they do not have cell walls, chloroplasts, and vacuoles, but they have everything else. Okay, so you need to know the difference between those things. With this one, you need to know the rule is that things go from an area of high concentration to low concentration. This picture is about osmosis, which is the movement of water. It's the diffusion of water. So the law of diffusion is to go from high concentration to low concentration. When looking at this picture, it looks like on the first beaker that you have a few molecules on one side and a lot of molecules on the other side. What you really need to be looking at, because they're asking you about the water, is you have a lot of water on the left side and a little bit of water on the right side. So the movement of diffusion is going to go from left to right. And they'll ask you, which way is the water moving? Which way are the molecules flowing? And in this case, when the second picture, now you see a lot of water on the right side and a little bit of water on the left side, because the water is going to go from high to low. So make sure that you are familiar with these vocabulary words: hypotonic, hypertonic, and isotonic. It helps to have pictures that go with those. And I'll try to do that with you all on Tuesday, because you don't have tests until Thursday, so I probably will still see you Tuesday and Wednesday. But we're just reviewing. There's no new stuff. So we do have time to get that review in. Next one is, oops, that's not what I want to do. I want to go back so I don't have to keep clicking. All right. What was that we just looked at? Transport. Okay, energy. This one. And on this page, it's particular that I said I was going to show you these equations today. It's one equation that you have to learn, but you need to know that when it starts with glucose, that's respiration. Okay, the molecule, you need to know four molecules: glucose, oxygen, water, carbon dioxide, and in this case, ATP. So that's 5. But it's the same molecules. So this one, the process is respiration because it starts with glucose. The process is aerobic because it needs oxygen. Aerobic is oxygen, anaerobic is without oxygen. This happens in the mitochondria. That's the structure that we call the energy factory for the cell. And reactants, when you have a chemical equation, everything on the left side is a reactant and everything on the right side is a product. It's like, what are you putting together to create a new product? Okay. When you get to chemistry, you'll learn what those numbers mean. They represent the fact that the equation is balanced. In chemistry, we talk about while we have chemical reactions, none of the molecules we don't make new molecules and we don't destroy any molecules. That's the law of matter. Nothing is created, nothing is destroyed. So what you have to look at is, if I have 6 carbons on one side of the equation, I need 6 carbons on the other side. And same thing with the hydrogen, the oxygens. You need the same number of molecules on both sides. Even though you've scrambled all of the letters and made new molecules, you still have the same number of molecules because it's a law. Law of conservation says you can't make up, even though we have water and carbon dioxide, which we didn't have in the first place. We still have the same, but it's made up of carbon and oxygen. We still have the same number of carbons. We still have the same number of oxygens. That's a law. Okay. But that part isn't important for you. I'm just threw that in for understanding. You'll need to know that next year for chemistry. All right. What you do need to know is when we take that same equation and we turn it backwards, now we're starting with the water and we're starting with carbon dioxide. And the thing we have in this equation is light. Last time we gave off energy. This one requires energy. Okay, this reaction does not take place without light. Okay, and then you create glucose and oxygen is released into the atmosphere by the plants. All right, so this equation, the process is photosynthesis. The organelle where it takes place is the chloroplast. And again, the reactants are on the left, so that's the water and carbon dioxide. Your products are glucose and oxygen. And I promise you, they will ask you what is the relationship between these two equations. And more than likely, I don't write the test, so I can't say for sure, but they most likely will ask you about products and reactants. And when you're looking at these two, one is the reverse of the other. Okay, so know what an ATP is, what we call the energy molecule. The energy that is created is stored in an ATP molecule. All right, so make sure you look this one over. All right, I'm going to stop and go over the milestone one that we had because I guess those who are not here yet are not coming. So let me do this one first and then time permitting, we'll go back. Whoops, that's not what I want. Okay. Okay, let's do it this way, I think. All right, so we go back to our macromolecule. All right, so again, we did the first 4 questions of number 1. And again, we're looking at where the organelles are. How does the nucleus and ribosome maintain? And we said it was it contains it contains the DNA, which programs the proteins, and this happens in the ribosome. For number 2, the macromolecule, and again, we talked about homeostasis as a vocabulary word. Know that that means stability and balance. So the cell has to have balance. So the macromolecules are the molecules that are too big to pass through the cell membrane. That's what that word means. They're still microscopic to us, but they are too big for the cell membrane. So we need active transport. So you have your chart of all your macromolecules. And the one that's primary for storing genetic information are your nucleic acids. Those are part of the DNA. The primary role for chloroplasts in the plant cell is to conduct photosynthesis. And we just talked about that with the equation. And number 4, how do carbohydrates contribute to the process? They serve as the primary source of energy. So that's where we stopped. Now, I want to say that you can get energy from all macromolecules. It's just that if the body has a choice of a protein or a carbohydrate for energy, it's going to take the carbohydrate. And if it's this is how diets work. If you stop eating all the carbohydrates, which is the energy source, the body says, I need energy. I'm going to start breaking down the fats and the proteins. So it will find its energy somewhere, but that's not its major role. All right, so when we look at the next question, the role of the mitochondria in maintaining homeostasis or balance in the cell is what? Somebody tell me. I'll let y'all talk to me today. What is the primary role of the mitochondria? We talked about it This is where respiration takes place. So what do we get from respiration? You can just type it in the chat. Somebody. Isabella, did you just blink out? Okay. And I always have to look twice because my answers are scrambled. All right, so yes, C is the correct thing. Thank you, Kashawn. They produce energy. So that's what the mitochondria, it's the energy factory of the cell. So this is where all that glucose goes and respiration occurs in the mitochondria, and its role is to make ATPs, which carry the energy. All right, number 6, the process is directly involved in the conversion of light energy into chemical energy. And I just did that one with you too. So which one is that? The process that requires light cannot happen without light. And just, all right, it is B. Thank you, Piper. It's photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, again, is a chemical process that takes the carbon dioxide from the air and the water up through the roots of the plant, and it scrambles everything. And thank you, folks. It is photosynthesis, and it makes glucose, which is a sugar molecule, which goes to the cell. This is the part where we say that plants make their own food. The glucose that it makes from the carbon dioxide in the water is its food. Okay, so it goes from from the photosynthesis equation to the respiration equation, where then it takes that food that it just made and it breaks it down to get energy. That is the whole point of food, is so that you can get some energy. Okay, now animal cells do not do that because they cannot make their own food. They have to take their food from outside. So that is the downfall of being an animal. All right, how do lipids, another word for lipids, fats, what is their function in cellular respiration? Anybody? Anybody? What is the function of a lipid? Like I said, you can get energy from fat molecules, but that's not their primary function in the body or the cell. What is their primary function? Nobody? All right, it is A. It is forms the structural components of the cell membrane. Okay, let me take a, it's hard for me to do that. Give me a second. I want to show you. It's easier to do it this way. Structure. All right, and you need to make sure that you look at the pictures of these. All right, so this is what they're talking about here. Look at, yeah, look at this one. All right, let's look at that one. All right, so when we talk about lipids, your cell membrane has a phosphobilipid layer. Okay, and then you have all these other structures that are embedded in your cell membrane. So make sure that, because we had this picture also in our notes, and we did a whole lot of labeling it. So make sure that you go back and look at that as well. Again, you need to think of the cell membrane as like a screen. It is semi-permeable, which means it lets some things in easy and some things you have to help it add to the cell, get into the cell or out of the cell. So that is active transport. Passive means it just flows through because it's small enough to do so. So these protein channels, they help things pass through. So things that are too big to just float through. They can go through the protein channel. That's still is facilitated, but it's still passive. Active transport is when they actually form pockets and they fall into the pocket and it actually pulls it in, spits it out, or vice versa. They pick up the waste from the inside and go to the membrane and spit it out. That's active transport of getting things in and out. Alrighty. Where were we? This one. Nope, not that. There we go. I have too many things open. Okie dokie. Let's close. Close. All right. So that's number 7 is A. Number 8. The primary function of a Golgi apparatus is to modify, sort, package proteins and lipids. So it's like the UPS. It packages things and then it sends it to where it needs to go. So it's A. Okay. And you kind of have to give yourself little names for all the organelles that help you remember what they do. All right. The process that involves the conversion of glucose, yes, is A. The process, number 1 was yes, A. Number 1 was A, yes. The process that involves conversion of glucose into ATP in the presence of oxygen. That's the key word there. If something is in the presence of oxygen, it is aerobic. Okay. All of these are chemical processes, but only aerobic respiration involves oxygen. Fermentation is anaerobic. Anaerobic means that this is a process that goes on without oxygen. Lactic acid synthesis is anaerobic. All right, number 10. How does the structure of DNA facilitate replication? See if you can tell me that one. What makes DNA's structure able to makes good for replication? What do you know about the structure of DNA? Somebody type an answer. All right, yes, B, it is double helix. That means it's, we call it a spiral staircase. It is double helix. And that allows it to serve as a template. Template means that it sets itself up and then the RNA comes in and sits on top and copies the information. All right, and remember that the DNA never leaves the nucleus. It has all the instructions, but the RNA comes in and reads the instructions, and then it takes it to where it needs to go. All right, what is the role of the lysosome in a cell? Sometimes they call a lysosome a suicide stack because if the cell is malfunctioning, it is C. Thank you, Isabella. To digest and recycle cellular waste. So it's like the garbage company. But if the cell is defective and can't function anymore, it will release the enzymes into the cell and digest itself. So that's why sometimes they call that. So when they use symbols, if you see one that has the skull and crossbones, that's the one you should pick for the lysosome. All right, which macromolecules primarily involved in catalyzing biochemical reactions? A catalyst is something that when you add it to an chemical equation, it helps break things down. That's what enzymes do. So once you figure out that enzymes are your catalysts, then you have to say, what is an enzyme? There are different types of proteins. Enzymes are a protein. We have hormones are proteins, enzymes are proteins. We have our amino acids make proteins, but the macromolecule that makes enzymes is proteins. Okay, so 12 is A, proteins. What is the significance of the cell membrane selective permeability? So I told you, think of the cell membrane like a screen. If I threw a bucket of dirt, muddy water at the screen, it would let the water through, but it would keep most of the dirt molecules out. So it is selective. It regulates what moves in and out of the cell. So that would be D. It regulates what moves in and out of the cell. All right, how do nucleic acids contribute to cellular respiration process? Or just the cellular process. And what do nucleic acids do? Okay, yes, D. Thank you, Piper. They store and transmit genetic information. All right, what is the role of the endoplasmic reticulus, sometimes abbreviated ER? And that is like a highway. If you look at it, it looks like a little highway system going through the cell. And which one did you pick for that? A, yes, thank you, Isabella. To synthesize and transport proteins and lipids. All right, so again, think of it like a highway. There's two types of endoplasmic reticulum when you look at a cell. It's always going to be the thing that looks like a squiggly spaghetti going through the outside, not inside the nucleus, outside the nucleus. Some of them are smooth, so you have smooth endoplasmic reticulum and you have rough endoplasmic reticulum. Those are the ones with the little dots on them, and all those little dots are the ribosomes. So once the proteins are made in the ribosomes, they are transported by the endoplasmic reticulum to where they need to go. Okay. All right. Next one. The process responsible for synthesis of RNA from a DNA template. What is this? There's two different processes. There's one process where it reads, and then there's another process where it takes that information, and they said think of it as having two different languages that you have to interpret what the DNA says so that you get it back to the RNA is like the interpreter. So when it gets back to the ribosome, it can interpret what the DNA wanted it to say. And which ones? So you have two words that start with T, and you have to make sure that you know the difference. All right. So transcription. You have to transcribe. In the nucleus, we transcribe. And then we take that information, our carbon copy of the DNA, we go to the ribosome, and then we translate. Okay? We tell it what do we tell the ribosome what the DNA said to do? Excuse me. Okay, so know the difference between those two processes, transcription and translation. They like to confuse you on those. All right, how does meiosis contribute to the genetic diversity? All right, these are our reproductive processes. Remember that meiosis only happens on your egg and sperm cells, your gametes. And other than that, during mitosis, we make exactly the same thing as the parent cell. So it's like cloning. We make an exact copy during mitosis. During meiosis, we can get some variation. So the answer to that one is D, by allowing crossing over and independent assortment. That means that the offspring don't look exactly like mom and dad, but they have some of their characteristics. And if you remember on the chromosomes, when the chromosomes line up, little sections of the chromosomes can swap places, and that's what we call crossing over. All right, 18. What is the primary function of a ribosome in the cell? So we talked about that already. What do ribosomes do? All right, Kashan, I think you just answered it. Is B, to synthesize. And remember that word synthesize means to make proteins. All right, 19. The process of converting RNA into a protein. So that's going to be the opposite of the question that we just had. This is going to be our translation. Okay, so the copying of the information from the DNA is transcribed, and within the RNA, the ribosome, you're going to translate it. Tell the protein, the ribosome, what the DNA said. All right, 20. How does the process of photosynthesis contribute to energy flow in the cell? And that's going to be A, by converting the light energy into chemical energy stored in the glucose. Okay, again, photosynthesis cannot happen without light. Um, there's also another enzyme involved in that. It kind of energizes the chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is an enzyme that is in the chloroplast. And so with the light energy and the chlorophyll, then we can get photosynthesis going. With respiration, they have an enzyme too, and that's but they just simply call it a catalase. That helps that equation go on. The thing with enzymes is there are a catalyst, is that they get the reaction going, but they don't become part of the reaction. Okay, so the molecules that are made up in the proteins of the enzyme don't become part of your product. Okay, they do what they need to do and then they leave. All right. Any questions about that? Okay. I added another review sheet to, let me see if it's, um, okay, classification review. Click on that one. All right, you all struggled with classification and dichotomous keys. So I want you to work on this one. This one kind of functions like, what do you call it? Like a Nearpod, where they give you some information and then they give you some questions to answer as well. So go through and read this. And it says, now you try, work on this. Okay. I'm going to see if I can't pull him up. But read through. This slide over here is blank, but it just goes, if this was a video, it would explain what you did with this one. So you want to classify them, put them in groups of similar items, and you can just put that in the box for number 3 if you want to. Okay. So, but don't worry about that it's not a movie, it was a word description thing on that particular exercise. Then continue reading, and then you're going to get to this one right here. But see, this one helps you a little better because, like I said, some of you all did not grasp the concept of a couplet. Okay, so that should help you with that. So you need an answer for 12, you need an answer for 3, then you're reading, you're reading, you're reading. And then they have some questions questions over here. So a lot of it is reading, and then there's some things for you to do. So take a few minutes to go through this one, okay? And we'll talk about that. If there's anything else that you haven't done, please make sure that you do that. Progress reports go out next week, so we want to make sure that whatever grade is in the grade book is the most complete grade. No zeros. Right, I'm going to stop sharing so I can do attendance and let you work on that worksheet. If you finish that one, again, go back to the modules. At the end of all the modules, pull up all of those. That's what we're going to do on Monday, not Monday, Tuesday for you, Tuesday and Wednesday. We're just going to go over those module worksheets. Nothing new, nothing new. So study, study, study. Don't just answer the questions, turn in worksheets. Because again, this one has only got 10 points, and that's just because you did it. But we're going to go over this so that you have right answers. All right. Okay, so while you do that, let me take attendance. Okay, I added that picture of the cell membrane to the assignment box. But it's the same picture that you have in Canvas if you need to look at that as well. Uh, uh, Okay. In case you didn't get to this question yet, I'm going to help you with this one. Like I said, some of you struggled with your um, a dichotomous key. So again, these sentences are called couplets. And notice they take one characteristic on this, the most outstanding thing on him. Um, what kind of ears does he have? It says has pointed ears, has rounded ears. And then at the end of the sentence, it tells you where to go, what to do. There's a command at the end of the sentence. If you look at him, he's got pointed ears. He does not have rounded ears. So we're going to say, go to number 3. Number 3 looks at, does he have a tail or not? He has no tail. He's Kentucky. If he had a tail, you can't really see if he has a tail. So it gives you a name at the end of this, and then you would be done. Okay. If his ears, I'm sorry. Okay, I did that wrong. You're supposed to go to number 3. So number 3, you're supposed to look at his ears are up or down. So his ears right now go downward. So it says go to number 4. Okay. We go to number 4. Does he engage in waving behavior, or is his hair in tufts around his ears? He's waving at you. Okay. So then that tells you who he is because he is waving. So his name is Dallas. So who am I? I'm Dallas. Sorry, I keep reading the wrong one. All right, the ears point. His ears point down. Go to number 4. Yeah, I did that. All right, engages in waving behaviors. Yeah, he's Dallas. Okay. Um, if it had said, if it was pointing upward and he's waving, he would be Walla Walla. but he's not. His ears are not pointing upward, so he's Dallas. Okay. And so the other one, we don't have to worry about the other ones because it stops with wherever it, if it stops with an identification, that's where you stop. Okay. So that's the answer to that question on your worksheet. I just pulled this one up um, separately. Okay. So that was, that's number 12 on your worksheet. And again, not everything on that worksheet has a question for you to do. Some are just reading, but you do need to know everything on that worksheet. All right, since these are just review sheets, I'd rather create a new folder. I've added a second review sheet to the folder on classification. So the second one I've added is mitosis and meiosis, and it's similar to the one that you have on classification in that there's some reading parts to it. It's not all questions and answers. You want to go through and read this one as well. Okay, so this one is on cell cycle similarities and um, of mitosis and meiosis. Remember PMAT, and so that PMAT is the acronyms for knowing the phases of um, mitosis and meiosis in order: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. Know what's going on. Why do we have cancers? Because the cells are growing out of control. Uh, so most of this is reading. So go ahead and go through and read, and then you don't get questions until you get to the end of it. Okay. But I put it in the same folder so that we're not making a whole bunch of folders um, for review. Okay. All right. That being said, all right. So over the weekend, I know you're going to relax and enjoy this lovely weather because the sun is supposed to shine and no rain for a while. But please, 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 you do have milestone tests to do. Please study for this test. Again, it is 20% of your grade. Okay, all I can do is give you information. I can't tell you what the questions are because I'm not writing the test. So that's going to require that you spend some time becoming familiar with everything that you can think of. Again, study vocabulary. Again, I'm a firm believer that if you know what the word means, you can interpret what this question is asking you. And they give you, most of the time, the questions will give you little hints. So read the whole question, read it slowly. You have time. They give you as much time as you need. Don't rush through it just to get it done. Read each question carefully and decipher what is the question asking me? What clues is the question giving me in order to answer the question correctly? As you go through your review pages from the modules, if there are any questions, things that you clearly still don't understand, come to class prepared to please explain this to me. Like I said, I could just give you all of the questions, but you need to say which ones are clear to you and which ones I need to explain more. Also, remember that you have some videos saved in your YouTube playlist. Go back and watch a video. Okay, folks. You have no questions for me. You all have a good weekend. See you next week.